This video was published by mbkpinternational.com. Today we're going to talk about the perfect G12 Pro paper cutter. This video would also be for the G17 paper cutter, G17 Pro paper cutter. It's the exact same cutter as this, except the G17 is, except it's just a little bigger. So this adjustment would work for either one, and we're going to be adjusting this video. Is if you do a cut, let's say I just did a cut here and I take the paper off, and a stack of paper, obviously, but I'm just doing one here, and you measure this, and it's 8 inches here, and in this example 7 and 15/16 this way. Now it could be the opposite way, it could be more off, it could be less off, but that's just this would be the adjustment you make to fix that. Now a lot of people think you adjust the blade. You do not adjust the blade. The blade is in a fixed position, but when you put a stack of paper in here, what you do is you loosen this up, move it out of the way, and you put the stack of paper up against this, and you make sure it's perfectly against this. So your cut is only as accurate as this is accurate, this back paper support. So the adjustment we'll be doing today is this back paper support. We're just going to remove this safety shield, get it out of your way. And on this, you just want to loosen up and just get it completely out of the way. This just slides off, and you can put it back in easy and put it back on. So just keep it off to the side. You don't want to take this completely off, but keep it off to the side. And basically, the quickest and easiest way to do this is if you had a rubber mallet. If you don't have a rubber mallet, if you just have a hammer, then you want to use a block of wood with it. And all we're going to do is just be tapping on one side or other of this to straighten that out. Now, a lot of times you can look at this, and I don't know if it's going to show in the video, you can come a little closer, and you can look at this blue line this thing is on. And you can see it's starting to pinch a little bit tighter, like you don't see as much blue line at the end over here where the 12 inch is. Why over the 2 inch, I can see more blue line on this particular example. So I know, it's not on the grid perfect, but you can't always go by that, but that's just a quick look. Maybe if it's off a lot. The grid is pretty darn accurate, but it could be off just a hair, so you can't always go by the grid. In this case here, this side cut 8 and this cut 7 and 15/16, so it's off a 16. This side's cutting let's say I set it to 8 inches. This side is cutting a 1/16 of an inch too short. So in that case, this paper is going to have to come back this way. So it's going to have to come back that way. So you can see the angle by watching this, the angle that this thing's going to have to move. If it has to come back this way, this is going to have to go back that way. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating how much it needs to go back there. But so in this case, I'm going to be tapping this side with a rubber mallet. I'm going to be tapping this side, and I can move this way too to get it out of the way. I'm going to be tapping this side back with a rubber mallet. Or the other option is you can tap this forward with a rubber mallet. You know, to bring either this forward or this back in this scenario. If it was the opposite, and it's cutting 7, 16, 15, and 8 here, you need to bring this side back here, so you'd be going back with that or forward with this. But in this example, I'm doing it this way, and you can see your paper is off. It's short, a 1/16 inch this way, so the paper needs to come this way, and you can see the angle that changed, and that's the angle that needs to go. So I'm going to just move this out of the way, and I'm going to tap, and you can maybe get a close up here, and you can see it moving back slightly. And that pretty much did it there. Now you can see the blue line a little bit better there. Okay. Now if you don't got this, again, you can use a block of wood. You just don't want to chip your paint with a regular hammer. And I could have hit the other side if it didn't want to move. I can move this forward if this didn't want to move back, or if you're off the other way, you could do the other way. Now if it doesn't want to move at all on you, I'm just doing this so it's quicker. But what you can do if it doesn't want to move at all when you do that adjustment is you can lift this up. Pretty simple. And you'll find these screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this one. I think there's 7 on the G17, and that's just for that thing we were adjusting, the back paper support. And you can just loosen these about 1/4 to 1/2 a turn each. You don't want to loosen them too much, because then it's just flopping all around. You just want to loosen all those about 1/4 to 1/2 turn each. And then when you tap it, it will move a lot easier. So that's up to you if you want to loosen those, but you can do it without loosening them, because they are snug, and you can tap it, get a decent tap. And when you're talking about really microscopic movements, that's all. Sometimes you don't even need to loosen those screws, but if you want to, you can. But if you do, just loosen them 1/4 to 1/2 a turn each, and then you wouldn't have to hit as hard. You can just tap it a little bit more, and it will move. And you can kind of eyeball it based off this line here, how it is on that line, and how this is lined up to that line. You can see that's off. And you're just basically gonna have to go a little bit and retest it. and see if it's on, and see if you went too far, if you need to go more. It all comes down to this back paper support when your cuts are off. With the exception of, and this is a strong possibility too, if you've got a cutter that you've used quite a decent amount and your blade is dull. If your blade is dull, when you do a cut, the stack will tend to shift on you just slightly, ever so slightly, because the blade, you're really having to pull down to cut your paper stack, and the stack will actually shift under this clamp, which will make your cuts off as well. So if you've had the cutter a while, you got a few cuts on it, a few hundred, several hundred, cuts on it, and especially if you cut cardstock will dull blades faster than regular paper. The harder the paper is, the faster it'll dull your blades. Or if you're cutting things besides paper, definitely then you shouldn't be doing that. But if your blade's dull, you need to change your blade, and that could fix your problem. You may not even have to mess with this. So I would check your blade first to make sure. I would replace your blade first if you've had your cutter over 6 months, or if you use it a lot. And another thing is, if it's a new cutter and you know your blade's new and it's sharp, then it could also come down to you just not clamping this clamp tight enough. So that's another thing you want to watch. You need a little more than just a little push, because it will shift under there, even with a sharp blade. You need to give it a couple good pushes down. You don't want to jump on top of it or anything, but a couple good pushes down, make sure it's nice and tight. It needs to be very tight to hold that paper stack when the blade goes through it. So if you're not pushing this clamp down hard enough, it could be shifting under. So that could be a thing you might want to check that first, and your blade first, before you adjust this angle on this. That's the three things it can be if your angle's not on. Either your blade is dull and the stack is shifting under the clamp, even though the clamp is tight, or if you do have a sharp blade, maybe you're not putting your clamp down tight enough, and the stack is still shifting. So make sure your clamp's down tight enough, make sure your blade's sharp. If those two are good, then you can move on to adjusting this. Now if you tap this, if you don't loosen those screws up first that I showed you on there, and you tap this and it moves really easy, fairly easy, then when you're done adjusting, you may want to tighten those screws up under there, because they may not be tight enough, and that may be why it went out of adjustment. Sometimes they can get out of adjustment in shipping, just it can get knocked somehow or dropped, the cutter, and it can, because all it takes is a hair movement one way or the other to get off. But that's basically it. Once you're done with your adjustment, you can put your side paper support back on, and your safety shield here, make sure that's back on. And that's basically the only other thing I'm going to tell you is, when you're doing a cut, you always want to have this paper stack perfectly against this. You want to stack your paper really good, and your cut's only going to be as good as your placement of the paper. This side paper support is for, you get it to approximately where you want it, but the majority of it comes from this, because this is fixed when it's set right. That one's right when you adjust it, if it's adjusted correctly. This one, you can always move it and move it around. It could be, you don't want to always go by it. It's just kind of to go up against, about how far to go, but most of your adjustment or your placement goes against here first. And then you can slide this against this if you want, or you can have it there to begin with and just tighten it down, try to get as accurate as possible. But it could also be, if you're putting it against this more than that, and this is not right, that could be the reason why your cut's off. But that's basically it. Those things there you just need to watch out for. This video was published by mbkpinternational.com.